Hello. It's been a while. Doing a fire pit on my own here. Apologies. I live by a highway. It's the fence for that. I don't know if that was visible, but tried to show it. I'm here to talk about anger. Something I have a lot of, but I don't know if I've touched upon that directly. I've certainly talked about many of the related symptoms, but anger is something that is necessary but often quelled. To a large degree, necessarily, we can't go around punching and yelling at people around us as adults that, it's just not what makes a good, fulfilled society. However, often, I think people that are the angriest become people like myself that are the most suppressed, because we learn that the only way to handle such things is to bury it and to build resentment and general antagonism, at times passive aggression, which I try my best to not show but often come out in certain circumstances. And there's no easy answer to any of these things. I know there's therapy to be done and many times helpful, but on an individual basis it's often difficult to transpose these therapies to individual considerations. In my case, I find that the avoidance of anger often comes to an avoidance of passion, which arguably, if not most cases, is the directed cause. And I fear passion. I fear caring. I fear attachment. And I don't think this is only in relation to anger. It often is in relation to fear of abandonment, fear of folly, fear of people disliking me. It all comes from the same source, that being attachment itself. As I get older, I go through strides of complete absence in my own life. And that's my fault and my burden to bear. It's nothing another person, another body can take responsibility for. However, it often leads me to periods of generalized antagonism. And I say generalized in the sense that it's little things across the board. I dislike everything around me. every little thing, many things I otherwise would find some sense of joy in, is now a slight, an aggressor. And I have to leave these situations, these places, these environments that I would otherwise find myself at home with. I'm trying to make peace with a lot of these things, and it's not an easy venture, but I think what self-help neglects in many ways, and I'm not to say across the board, I'm not myself educated on every individual level on all of these fronts, but what a lot of these mindfulness and self-improvement sets fail to direct many people on is that chaos itself is a necessary direction. Order often precludes healthy and socialized behaviors. It's so easy to just steer away, to focus on yourself, to stop entering endeavors, conversations, relationships that give you anxiety and frustration. And if you continue to venture from everything that give you a little bit of that frustration, you miss the necessary development that you need to have. And I'm not saying that inherently self-help books and mindfulness dissuade you. Often they push you towards, in their own mindsets, dealing with discomfort. That's often a hallmark. However, the general facets regarding coping and regarding modulating your own general disposition steer you towards being stable, in quotes. People aren't stable. Nobody is stable. On the worst day, not to say people will become Ted Bundy and start murdering people, but on their worst day, people will certainly have an outburst and certainly have issues regulating their emotions, and that should be avoided, of course, on across the board facets. But to become detached is not to become human, it's to become a robot. And in many ways, I find myself veering towards becoming a robot, partly because of the therapies and considerations that I've been privy towards. That's not good. It's not healthy. Modulation is good, and maybe that should be the first basis, but anger only grows. Anger doesn't forget. Or rather, rage, I should say, doesn't forget. It builds. It turns to resentment. It turns to antagonism. And from there, a whole list of factors. Now I'm regulating as best as I can, and I think hopefully, as time goes on, I'm learning to direct that towards necessary endeavors, whether it be arts or my own general self-improvement. But that's not instinctual. That's not necessarily immediate. And even in those endeavors, it's not complete. You can only stew on yourself for so long before you start to feel resentful towards what made you be alone in those considerations. Even if it's not rational, we're not rational people. We're animals, and we can't forget that. We have to find ways of directing healthfully our passions and considerations. And I'm not saying in philosophy psychology neglects that, because it doesn't. But in practice, it does. In practice, we're taught to cool ourselves. And that only goes two ways. Either become completely dissociated and go down the wall, which I've done, or you start to resent the idea of that and you go completely in the other direction. Passion is necessary. Rage is not. And I think somewhere in that intermediate consideration, we've lost our perception. I just want an ability to handle things in a human way, as I am human and I can never be anything else. Because as it stands, I've lost another friend group due to inability to confront any of them with my issues, because I'm afraid of such passions. And you shouldn't be afraid of passion. You should only be afraid of aggression. But I'm a person that avoids all conflict, no matter how small. And again, I'm not saying that psychology promotes that, but it does not stop it. And I wish at some point we come to some kind of break on this subject.